This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
I want to thank Chazaq for inviting me to join with you this afternoon. Thank you, Rabbi Yaniv Meirav, together with his brother, Rabbi Ilan Meirav, who are doing amazing work on behalf of Klal Yisrael. I also want to recognize all of our thousands of Torah Anytime viewers, and I want to thank my good friend Reb Reuven Kol Yaakov, who is doing unbelievable work for TorahAnytime.com, together with his brother Shimon and Yosef Devos. Rebbeinu Shem should bless them all. Chamisha iskim b'tzarchei tzibur be'amunah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yisham lo yischaram. We have a few more hours left to Tisha B'Av, and we're thinking to ourselves, it's not really a great day, but look, it's almost over. But we don't get it. It is a nightmare. It's not bad. It's not something that's unfortunate or sad. It's a nightmare. It's a horror. A devastating disaster. Life without a Beis Hamikdash is like death. But we're used to it already. We go on with our daily lives. We go through the motions. We're busy making a living, busy raising a family. We've been accustomed to a world without a Beis Hamikdash. But let's get a little reality check. Life without a Beis Hamikdash is a worse nightmare. It's like Misa, it's like death. We say it every Shabbos in the Bracha and the Haftarah. We say, Ribono Shel Olam, Rachem al Tzion. Have mercy on Yerushalayim, ki hi beis chayenu. Because it's our life. That's what we're saying. Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash, that's our lifeblood. And without the Beis Hamikdash, it's like death. When the wicked Titus Harasha enters the Kodesh HaKadoshim, we said it in Kinur Tezayin, Zechor asher asa tsar b'fnim. Remember what that evildoer did when he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he slashed the paroiches, says the Gemara in Gittin, that he took his sword and he pierced the paroiches. Says the Gemara, blood came gushing out of the paroiches. To the point, says the Gemara, that he thought, kiviyachal, that he killed the Ribono Shel Olam. What did Hashem do that for? Hashem made a miracle so that Titus should think that he killed God? For what? God doesn't make miracles for Goyim. God doesn't make miracles for Goyim to think that they're successful. Says Rav Isaac Sher, who is the son-in-law of the Alter of Slobodka. Says Rav Isaac Sher, the Ribono Shel Olam was declaring a very important principle. That the Beis Hamikdash is the lifeblood of the universe. It is Beis Chayenu. And the Beis Hamikdash is the vehicle through which everything good came down to the world. Physical goodness, spiritual goodness. The Medrash tells us that if the nations of the world would only have known what the Beis Hamikdash would mean to them personally, they never would have destroyed it. Says Rav Isaac Sher, the blood gushing forth from the paroiches represented that the entire world had suffered a fatal blow, a fatal wound to the heart. The world was suffering cardiac arrest. It was a dagger to the heart. So it's an absolute nightmare. It's a disaster of the most epic proportions. If we were to think about individuals who have died horrific, torturous deaths, we make our top 10 list of the 10 worst torturous deaths. Yoshiyahu HaMelech would have to head the list. The righteous King Yoshiyahu, he goes out to war against the forces of Paro Nechai. Says the Kinnah, says the Navi, they shot at the body of Yoshiyahu with 300 arrows. Samuha kimatara lechitzim. They made him like target practice. To the point, Chazal say, Koravius v'Ravius sheyatza migufay hatar haya Yirmiyah kaivrei. Every ounce of blood that emanated from the body of Yoshiyahu, Yirmiyah came to run to bury it. Yoshiyahu was tortured to death. Every arrow in his body, it took 300 arrows. And he was still alive. It's almost impossible to understand this. Because God came to Yoshiyahu. He says, Herzachai, listen up, Yoshiyahu. Lachein ani oisivcha alav oisecha Don't worry. Everything's going to be wonderful. You're going to die in peace. Hashem comes to Yoshio and he says, Rabbi Yid, you're going to die in peace. This is peace? Being pierced with 300 arrows, with blood gushing forth from every limb of his body? This is peace? He was tortured to death, Rabbi Say. Are we missing something? Answers the Gemara in Mo'ikatan. Yoshio HaMelech died in peace. Shaloi charav beis hamikdash biyamav. Yoshio died in peace because he did not see the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Says Hagoin Rav David Leibowitz, Zecher Tzak Livracha, the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was such a horror, was such a nightmare, that for Yoshio to be tortured to death, that was paradise. That was Gan Eden, compared to having to witness the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. If only we could lay our bare feet on the floor of the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz writes, the Aros Tavash, Drushir Aleph, that anyone who would merely place their feet on the floor of the Beis Hamikdash would attain and be imbued with a flow of Chachma. Just standing on the floor of the Beis Hamikdash would ennoble the mind and the heart and endow higher levels of insight. That is why, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, before you entered the temple, you had to take off your socks and shoes so there would be no mechitza, no interruption, no hefsek between you and the floor of the Beis Hamikdash. If you could only spend one moment in the Beis Hamikdash, you'd be a different person forever. Says the Medrash Rabbah in Bereshis Parsha Samachay, that before the Goyim entered the Beis Hamikdash, they're very scared to go in. They heard reports that even the Kohen Gadol, if he would enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he wouldn't be on a high enough level, he would drop dead immediately. So they decided to conduct an experiment. They sent in a rebel, a Jewish Rasha, a wicked man. His name was Yosef Meshisa. And they said, Yosef, do us a favor. You know, you're really good at angering your God. So do us a favor. Go into the Beis HaMikdash, do what you do best, go in, get God really angry, and you know what? You can take whatever you want. You go in there, you take some silver, some gold, whatever you take, it's all yours. Yosef Meshisa said, I've been waiting for this. He walks into the Beis HaMikdash. He takes the most prized possession of the Beis HaMikdash. He takes the menorah. He comes out with the menorah. The menorah is unbelievable. It's majestic, beautiful. The Romans say, no, not the menorah. The menorah is for the king. This is not for a commoner. Go in, take anything you want. It's not the menorah. Yosef Meshisa thinks. He says, you know what? Not right now. Not right now. Do you want something else? We'll forgo your taxes for 3 years. Yosef Meshisa says, I'd rather not. Rather not? You better go in. You don't go in, you're a dead man. Yosef Meshisa says, it's enough that I've angered my Creator once. I'm not doing it again. They took him. They put him on the carpenter's bench. They took the axe. And Yosef Meshisa cried out, Vai! Oy! Oy shehechasti l'bayri. What happened to the man? He's schizophrenic. A moment ago, he's a Rasha Marusha. He's willing to anger God. He's willing to go in to the holiest spot on earth and defile the Mikdash. And the next moment, he's Meiser Nefesh. He's a spiritual hero. What happened to the guy? Says the great founder of the Panovitcher Yeshiva, Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahanaman, you know what changed him? Spending one moment in the Beis HaMikdash. The Kedusha, the Tahara of the Beis HaMikdash, the experience of spending 1 second in the Beis HaMikdash transformed the biggest Rasha until a spiritual hero. And this is why we cry. The loss of our home, the source of our blessing, the source of our success, the source of all our spiritual wealth, our physical wealth, everything we had came from that house that stood on the Temple Mount that B'Amnosenu Harabim we no longer have. For us, it proves difficult to cry even one tear. We sit there on the floor, and for maybe 3.5 seconds, we try to make believe that we feel bad. We don't perceive the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. We're looking at our watch. How many hours left? Because we feel very comfortable with our lives. We've been accustomed to a Jewish life without a Beis HaMikdash. But Rabbi say, let's rev up the reality check. Anybody who ever attended some of our Shiurim knows that I can't help myself. I have to give out handouts, even on Tisha B'Av. I didn't know what to do with myself today. I had to make photocopies. So we have a handout over here. I want to read to you the words of the Vilna Gaon from the Sefer called Safra D'Tzniusa. We know the Vilna Gaon was proficient in all realms of the Torah, the revealed parts of the Torah, the hidden parts of the Torah. The Vilna Gaon wrote a commentary on a Kabbalistic work called Safra D'Tzniusa. Let me read to you what the Vilna Gaon writes. Says the Vilna Gaon, Ki me'es shecharav habayis. You know, if you would try to rate, how is Klal Yisrael doing in the year 2013? We would say pretty good, right? We have big Batei Knesiyos, we have Tisha B'Av events, hundreds of people, thousands of people. We're doing pretty good. Says the Vilna Gaon, let me alter your viewpoint. Says the Gra, Ki me'es shecharav habayis. From the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Yatza Ruchenu Ateres Roshenu. Our spirit, our lives have been sapped. B'nisharnu rak anachnu guf b'loi nefesh. Says the Gra, from the moment the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, spiritually, we're dead. We're dead. We have no chiyus. So you say, okay, not so bad. At least we have our bodies. At least the bodies are intact. Says the Gra, v'yitzia l'chutz la'aretz. But when the Goyim exiled us from Eretz Yisrael, hu hakever, that's spiritual burying. That's interment. Okay. But the body's still there, right? Says the Gra, v'rima misayveves aleinu. The worms surround us. Ve'en b'yadeinu lahatza, we have no protection. Who are the worms? Hein akum ha'ichlem b'sareinu, the influence of the Goyim that consume our flesh. So you say, at least some of the flesh is there. At least we have, even if we're spiritually dead, at least we have dead flesh, says the Gra. At least we had the great Torah academies. We had Surah, we had Pumpadisa, we had the Chachmei Ashas, Abayi v'Rava, Ad Shenirkav, Habasar, V'Ha'atzamais Nipsaru, Pizar Achar Pizar. We didn't even have an intact skeleton. The bones were dismantled. So you say, at least we have a pile of bones. Says the Gra, Mikamakim Hayu Adayin Ha'atzamais Kayamais. At least the bones were intact. Ad Shenirkavu Ha'atzamais. To the point where even the bones have rotted away. We don't have Rav Sadia Gaon. We don't have Rav Shrira Gaon. We don't have Rav Hai Gaon. We don't have Rashi, Tosfos, Rambam, Rifrash, Ramban. So what do we have? Says the Gra. V'lo nishar el atarvad rekev me'itanu. We have corpse dust. We're not even bones. We're dirt. We're dust. So what do we hope for? Says the Gra. We're waiting for spiritual revival. With all the Torah we have, with all the Shiurim we have, with all the great academies, boys' schools, girls' schools, we have nothing. Nothing. We're dead. We're beyond dead. We don't even have a body. We don't even have bones. We are tarvad rekev. Says the Gra, when we say every Friday night, Hisnari me'afar kumi, we don't mean God shake us off from the dust where we are. Says the Gra, shake us off from the dust that we are. That we are. That's all we are at this point. So to say that without a Beis HaMikdash we're spiritually dead would be a compliment. That would be a nice way of saying it. And after describing the horror, and the devastation, and the tragedy, and the nightmare, and how for a believing Jew, Churban Beis HaMikdash is better than death, we're faced with a very difficult problem. Because when we were in Shul this morning, we didn't say Tachnon. Because the Shulchan Aruch says in Sim Tavkuf Nun Tes, Ein noiflim al pneim b'Tisha B'Av. We don't say Tachnon on Tisha B'Av. You know why? Because it's a Moed. It's a Yom Tif, right? Mo'adim l'simcha, Rabbi say. It's a holiday. Says the Pasuk in Eicha, Kara olai Moed lishbar b'churai. Someone tell me, what exactly we're celebrating? Well, we're celebrating the Holocaust? We're celebrating the Inquisition? The Crusades? I mean, what's going on over here? It's a Yom Tif? And this is brought down la halacha. That not only do we not say Tachnon on Tisha B'Av, you don't say Tachnon Erev Tisha B'Av. Says Maran Bet Yosef. There was once a Levaya on Tisha B'Av, and they didn't allow the rabbi to carry out all the ceremonies of the Levaya. They said you can't do a Levaya on Yom Tif. Yom Tif? What in the world is going on over here? On the one hand, for Yoshio HaMelech, torture was paradise compared to the Churban. And on the other hand, we're not saying Tachnon. Perhaps we could suggest the following approach. In Kinavav this morning, we said, Al Pnei Paras Nuptsu Chasidah. At the Euphrates River, her pious ones were mutilated. And of course this refers to when Nebuchadnezzar HaRasha was exiling the well-known Levium. And Nebuchadnezzar goes over to Levium and they said, you know, you're great musicians. You've been playing music in the Beis HaMikdash for a long time. You know how to play the harp. Shiru lanu mishir tzion. Do me a favor. Serenade me as we gloat over our victory. Sing to us. Whereupon the Levium hung up their instruments on the Arava branches. They took out their hands, they put their thumbs in their mouths, and they bit off their thumbs. Not one Levi, not 2 Levium, not 10 Levium, not 100 Levium. Every single Levi. They mutilated their thumbs and they said, Eich nashir es shir Hashem al admas necha. No, we're not going to sing. We can't sing. We don't have the physical capabilities to sing. Take a look at Tosfos and Masechta Yevamos Daf Pevav. Says Tosfos, Ezra, we're talking at the end of the first Beis HaMikdash. 70 years later, they come up to rebuild Bayis Sheni. Ezra makes an announcement. He says, Rabbi Sai, we're going home. Says the Pasuk, Umi b'nei Levi lo matzasi sham. Ezra said, I can't find any Levium. There were no Levium. He had Kohanim, he had Yisraelim, every stripe and color of Klal Yisrael. No Levium. Ask Tosfos, no Levium? What do you mean there are no Levium? Asara Yuchsin Alumi Bavel. I mean, maybe no Kohanim, but no Levium. We know every type of Jew came up from Bavel. Says Tosfos. The young Levium, they had no interest in coming back. The only Levium that came back in the times of Ezra were people at least 83 years old who had been exiled 70 years earlier. Ezra said, do me a favor. We're building the Beis HaMikdash. You're going to stand here on the duch and you're going to sing Shira. They stuck out their hands. Sorry, we have no thumbs. Ezra said, can I get a decent Levi to sing Shira for me? Ezra could not find one Levi in Klal Yisrael to sing Shira. Whereupon Ezra penalized the Levium. He said, I don't have one decent Levi? That's it. From now on, my Sarishain doesn't go to the Levi anymore. My Sarishain goes to the Kohen. Asked Reb Chaim Zaychik, he's punishing the Levium? For what? For being Moiser Nefesh? For not singing Shira to Nebuchadnezzar? I mean, the Levium they gave up their lives. They gave up their arms. They gave up their hands not to sing Shira. And Ezra is punishing them? Says Reb Chaim Zaychik, it was quite admirable that the Levium did not want to sing Shira for Nebuchadnezzar. But why are they biting off their thumbs? What? They didn't think they would ever see the Beis HaMikdash again. Didn't they know that in 70 years they're coming back? They gave up hope. They were meyayish. A Jew never gives up hope. A Jew is never meyayish. And therefore Ezra said, as admirable as it was to bite off your thumbs, we're punishing you. Because a Jew never loses his faith. With great pride and admiration, I would like to tell you, Rabbi Isai, about an individual of majestic personality, soaring spirit, about my grandfather, Rabbi Rabbi Glatstein. Hashem should watch over him and give him arichas yamim. My grandfather, Rabbi Glatstein, was together with his brother, Uncle Henoch, all the years in the camps. In Auschwitz, in Dachau, in Treblinka, and somehow, miraculously, they smuggled a pair of tefillin into Auschwitz. And every single morning, at the crack of dawn, they would wake up and put on the tefillin. If the SS officers would have caught them, they would have been dead instantly. Every morning they would put on the tefillin. First my grandfather, and then Lahavdu ben Chaim L'chaim, our uncle, Uncle Henoch. One morning, my grandfather finished putting on the tefillin. He hands the tefillin to his brother. Uncle Henoch puts on the tefillin shel yad. He then begins to put on the tefillin shel rosh. Just then, the SS officer runs into the room, sees the tefillin shel rosh, lifts up the gun to shoot. But then he looks again at the tefillin shel rosh. And all of a sudden, he became frozen. He became awestruck. He became frightened. He dropped the gun and ran out. My grandfather writes about this in an old edition of Das Yiddish Vart. And he said this was an open miracle. This is a fulfillment of the Gemara in Brachos. On the pasuk, V'ro kol amei haaretz, ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka. The nations of the world will see that God's name is upon you and they'll be afraid of you, says the Gemara in Brachos, Elu Tfilin Sheberosh. 1945. The Nazis had to make a very important decision. The American and Russian armies were approaching, and the Nazis had a dilemma. Should they focus their resources at the war front to try to win the war? Or they could dedicate all of their abilities to exterminate whatever Jews were left in Europe. They chose the latter. So they rounded up whatever Jews were still left in the camps, my grandfather included. They packed them like animals onto the cattle carts, without food, without drink, headed to the Tyrol Mountains, where they would dig their own graves, be shot, and kicked into the pit. With the help of the Ribbanu Shalom, the American army discovered the plot. Not even, if they would have discovered it an hour later, it would have been the end of them. Under the direction of General George S. Patton Jr., U.S. Air Force bombed the railroad tracks, thwarting the plan of these Risham. When the SS officers realized the end was near, they quickly exchanged uniforms with the inmates. But when the American army landed, they were not duped. The Jewish prisoners were skeletons. They were walking cadavers. The German officers were fat and robust. An American officer came over to my grandfather, handed him his pistol. He said, "Rabbi, take the gun. Now it's time to take revenge." "Take revenge, Rabbi." To which my grandfather responded, "Revenge? I leave revenge to the Ribbanu Shalom. It's been 5 years since I've been able to open up Masechta Baba Basra. I was in the middle of Masechta Baba Basra. Now that I'm reunited with my Gemara, that is all I need. I leave revenge to the Ribbanu Shalom." After the war ended, Holocaust was over, my grandfather was interviewed by the secular media. And it's recorded in a book entitled After the Holocaust. They asked my grandfather the following question. My friend Rabbi Chana will remember the story. After being an eyewitness to the brutality of the Germans, Rabbi, after seeing with your own eyes the devastation of your people, the mass murder of your brothers and sisters, did you at any point lose faith in your God? Did you at any point lose faith in the promises of the Torah? My grandfather responded, did I lose faith? Of course I lost faith. I lost faith in humanity. How could human beings become animals and barbarians? I lost faith in mankind. How could a civilized society like Germany shed their conscience? How could the United States of America turn the other way and ignore what was happening? So did I lose faith? I lost faith in mankind. But never for a moment did I lose faith in my God. Never for a moment did I lose faith in the Torah. My faith in my God only became stronger. Who can fathom the deep-seated emunah and soaring faith of these giants of spirits? There are no words to describe the towering, unbending faith of these giants. And as we reflect on Tisha B'Av, upon the greatness of these spiritual heroes, perhaps we have gained a new insight into why Tisha B'Av is considered a Moed. Because after all our nation has endured, we cannot help but celebrate the majesty, the grandeur, the nobility of the Jewish neshama, its indomitable spirit, its pure faith in its Creator. Perhaps then Tisha B'Av is a Yom Tov, a Moed, a celebration of the unbreakable, unwavering, pure emunah shalema of Klal Yisrael. That despite everything we've endured, we have never lost faith in the Borei Olam. We have never lost faith in the promises of the Torah. And we have never lost faith in the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. We should all be zeichet to see the Bias Goyal Tzedek and Her B'Yameinu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.